Did you know that the story of David and Goliath is more than just an underdog story? That it's more than just a man defeating a mighty giant with a slingshot and a stone. So before we get into this story, make sure you guys click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the new videos that's coming out in the future. So without further ado, let's jump right into David's life. So let's talk about David before his battle with Goliath. You see, David was just an ordinary man living an ordinary life. He was a shepherd, as we all know him. And David was also a big man of faith. He believed in God. You see, what we all know now is that David becomes the king of Israel. But what you probably didn't know is that David, long before his greatness, knew that he was going to be king. This is because he was anointed by God. He has been marked by God for greatness. And just like all of us, God has marked us for greatness. He has put purpose in our lives. We may seem ordinary now, just like David was, but we are all marked for something greater. You see, when God is still implanting images in your head of what your life will look like in the future, that means He is not done with you yet. That if you had the same fate as David did, you will have that life. You see, growing up, I've been told this story countless of times. David and Goliath, a man killing a mighty giant with a stone and a slingshot. What are the odds? But what they didn't include in the story was that God actually prepared David for the fight. You see, before even facing Goliath, David had to protect his flock of sheep against a bear and a lion. Talk about extreme training and conditioning. No, David actually had to fight off a bear and a lion to protect his sheep. Now, if we were to relate that to our lives, God has actually prepared us for the battles that lay ahead. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at the times in your lives where you went, I've been through something similar so I know how to get by. Or I know I can get by because God is on my side. My faith will never fail me. So fast forward to the day of the battle. Now we're getting to the juicy parts, guys. Now David arrives in battle. Did you guys know that David is not even supposed to be in the battlefield? No one went looking for David just because there's a giant in the battlefield. Not like in the movies where they were looking for the best champion to fight their best champion. No, none of that. David was not actually supposed to be in the battlefield. In fact, David was only there because he was delivering food for his brothers who are in the battlefield. David was actually asked by his father to bring food for his brothers. Let's take a look at that for a second. How many times has God put you in a very uncomfortable position? And by uncomfortable meaning you have to kill a giant. And rather than seeing it as a stepping stone to our greatness or to our promise, we turned back and retreated. Another thing that you probably didn't know about the story was that there is a reward for the man or the person who kills Goliath, and that is having the privilege to marry the king's daughter and never have to pay taxes again. Now, if you think about it, that is the promise. That is what God showed you. So sometimes God shows us the promise, but then He also shows you the process. This is what you're gonna have to go through before you get to the promise. Guys, I want you guys to remember that you can never get promise without process. But don't worry, just like the fight between David and Goliath, it's always a fixed fight when you're with God. That means you're always going to come out on top. So there he was, delivering food for his brothers in the battlefield. Then he overhears Goliath talking major trash about God. And if you know David, he ain't gonna let that pass. So he talked back. He goes, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine talking before me?" And then after the soldiers told him who he was and what the reward was after killing him, that was enough for him to whoop this guy's ass. Hold on. Let's try to relate that to our lives again. I know you guys want to see the death of Goliath and the fall of this giant, but let's connect this to our lives, because this is the important thing about reading the Bible, is just connecting it to your life and kind of relating it to. There will always be moments in our lives where the enemy is whispering in our heads that God is not good enough. Just like Goliath did in that story. The enemy will always try to tell you that God is not good enough, God can't save you from this, God is never gonna come through. And then the enemy tries to pull the string in you and say stuff from your past, that you don't have this degree, you don't have this diploma, you don't have the right credentials to be successful, you can never be ahead in life because you're a loser. That's what the enemy tries to do in your head. Now it's up to you to believe the enemy, or are you going to stand up for yourself and your faith just like David did? And you're gonna make this enemy regret to ever pointing its sword at you. So there he was, walking up to Goliath with a slingshot and a few smooth stones. Just like us, with whatever God has given us from birth, our gifts, our personalities, our talents, that's all we have. Whoever or whatever your giant may be, you're facing it with whatever God has given you. Because remember, whatever you have right now is enough. Like I said before, you're fighting a fixed fight. You'll be alright. I want you guys to be proud of the fact that you're bringing a rock to a sword fight. I want you to tell the enemy that I am enough. David winds up his slingshot and hits Goliath in the head with a rock and knocks the giant down to the ground. Now it's not finished yet, guys. It's not finished yet. Because after knocking down Goliath, David picks up his sword, Goliath's sword, and chops his head off with it. Now I just want to point out the level of disrespect David had for Goliath. My camera died and my lights died, so here we are. Got a new haircut, so let's get to the video. Anyways, as I was saying, David is such a gangster for chopping Goliath's head off with his own sword. Like, imagine playing Call of Duty and someone picks up your gun and kills you with it. The disrespect, man, is real. So before I let you guys go, I just want to remind you guys the importance of this story about David and Goliath. Number one, we are all marked for greatness. Remember that. At birth, we are marked for greatness. There's a greater purpose for our lives. There's a reason why you exist in God's kingdom. So if your life doesn't look like what you imagine it to be, don't worry. God is with you. He will keep his promise to you. The second thing that this story reminds you of is that every battle that we face, whatever situation you're going through right now, or whatever challenge you're going through right now, God has prepared you for it. Remember, God will never give you something that you can't handle. This has been proven many times in the Bible and it's been proven by many people. However tough it may look right now, God has actually prepared you for it. It may just look a tiny bit tougher right now because he's trying to strengthen you. Remember, he's trying to condition you, just like what he did for David. David had to fight off a lion and a bear before he fought off Goliath. So remember that God takes you through stages. But do not fear, because like I said, it is a fixed fight. The next thing is, whatever you have right now is enough to defeat the enemy. It's enough to defeat all the giants that we're ever going to face. Remember that God doesn't look at your qualifications, he qualifies people. So don't be afraid to bring a rock to a sword fight. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at David's life before his battle with Goliath. Don't forget to drop a like down below and share this video to everyone that you know. Hopefully I've earned your subscription, so click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the new videos that's coming out in the future. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Hope you guys have a blessed day and you remember to keep praying. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.